Imagine this, it's 3:17 a.m. Your room is dark, but your mind is brighter than ever. 1,000 thoughts collide in a chaotic symphony of doubt, anxiety, regret. You replay conversations that went wrong, choices that led nowhere, and dreams that vanished quietly, unnoticed. Your heart races as an unsettling realization grips you. The greatest threat to your happiness isn't outside your walls, it's behind your own eyes, hidden within the ceaseless chatter of your thought. What if the enemy was never society, never your family, never fate, but your very own mind? We have always believed the mind to be our greatest ally, our ultimate tool to navigate the complexities of life. It builds empires, invents cures, writes symphonies. But what happens when the very thing meant to liberate you becomes your tormentor? You've felt it before. That constant whisper of inadequacy, the endless loop of anxiety, the nagging doubt telling you you're never quite enough. It traps you, isolates you, and yet, strangely, it feels familiar. Like an old friend who visits only to remind you of your weakest moments, never your strength. Why do we trust it so implicitly, even as it pulls us deeper into misery? Society praises intelligence and rationality, teaching us from childhood that our thoughts define our worth. But it rarely warns us of the danger, that the same brilliant mind capable of creating astonishing beauty can just as easily craft our personal hell. This is the paradox we all secretly know yet dare not confront. Our mind, meant to serve us, often becomes our master. Consider this unsettling irony. You spend years building walls to protect yourself from external threats, harsh words, betrayals, failures, yet no one taught you how to guard against an internal siege. No one warned you that your fiercest battles would rage silently, invisibly within your own consciousness. Why do we continue trusting a voice that sabotages our every step? Why do we let our minds convince us we are worthless, hopeless, or fundamentally broken? What if your deepest fear isn't rejection, abandonment, or failure, but the truth that your mind, left unchecked, will inevitably betray you? The stakes are enormous. When your mind becomes your enemy, every relationship suffers. Every achievement feels hollow. Every joy becomes fleeting as doubts seep through the cracks. You slowly lose yourself to the endless demands and criticisms of an inner voice you once believed was your greatest strength. But here's the most chilling question of all. Is it possible to reclaim a mind that has turned against you, or are we forever at war within? Tonight, as you lie awake, heart pounding, mind racing, consider this deeply. If the battlefield is internal, how can you ever hope to find peace? And what if, just what if, everything you thought you knew about your mind was wrong? To truly understand this hidden battle, we must journey deeper. We must confront the psychological and philosophical roots of this internal conflict, exploring the dark truths unveiled by some of history's greatest thinkers. Brace yourself, because once you glimpse the hidden forces shaping your inner turmoil, you'll never see yourself or your mind the same way again. The battle within your mind isn't new. It is as old as human consciousness itself. This internal warfare, hidden beneath layers of thought, anxiety, and existential dread, finds its roots deeply embedded in the human condition. To truly grasp the nature of this conflict, we must step into the shadowy corridors of psychology and philosophy, guided by those who dared venture deeply into the human psyche. Carl Jung understood this intimately when he introduced the concept of the shadow, the hidden part of ourselves containing our suppressed fears, insecurities, and darkest impulses. According to Jung, denying the shadow only strengthens it, empowering it to control us subconsciously. When we refuse to acknowledge the darker sides of our nature, the shadow becomes a puppeteer, silently pulling our strings, orchestrating anxiety, guilt, self-sabotage, and feelings of worthlessness. Yet, society encourages precisely this denial. From childhood, we're trained to suppress emotions considered undesirable. Fear, anger, sadness, envy, burying them deep beneath a facade of composure and positivity. Over time, these buried emotions metastasize into a relentless internal critic, an inner voice whispering that we're unworthy, incomplete, undeserving of love or happiness. And thus begins our lifelong battle against an enemy we cannot see. Friedrich Nietzsche captured another dimension of this struggle through his insight into human suffering and self-deception. Nietzsche saw clearly how we construct our own prisons, driven by fear of confronting uncomfortable truth. Whoever fights monsters, he warned, should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. The mind, in Nietzsche's eyes, is both savior and tyrant, a powerful tool that, when misused, turns cruelly against its owner. We unwittingly internalize societal expectations and ideals, imposing upon ourselves standards impossible to achieve. This internalization breeds resentment, guilt, and self-loathing, transforming our very identity into a battleground of contradiction. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of philosophy's grimmest realists, argued that our constant inner dissatisfaction stems from what he called the will, an unending desire that pushes us endlessly forward, yet offers no lasting fulfillment. According to Schopenhauer, the mind is never truly satisfied. Even when we achieve our goals, new desires immediately spring forth, trapping us in a perpetual cycle of dissatisfaction. This restless will creates a persistent, gnawing sense of inadequacy, making our own mind feel like an insatiable enemy rather than an ally. Jean-Paul Sartre expanded on this, exposing the existential anxiety rooted in human freedom. Sartre argued that humans are condemned to be free, forced to constantly choose and take responsibility for their choices. This absolute freedom, rather than being liberating, can paralyze us. The weight of infinite possibility creates profound anxiety, pushing us to retreat into comfortable illusions or convenient self-deception. The mind, desperate to escape existential responsibility, often constructs elaborate rationalizations to avoid confronting the overwhelming terror of genuine freedom. Aldous Huxley predicted our modern struggle with terrifying accuracy. He foresaw a society drowning in distractions, technology, entertainment, superficial pleasures that numb the mind rather than nourish it. In Huxley's dystopia, the mind itself becomes complicit in its own imprisonment, addicted to superficial happiness while avoiding deeper truth. Our modern minds, constantly stimulated yet spiritually starved, turn restlessly inward, becoming both victim and oppressor. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of Nazi concentration camps, offered a crucial insight into the power of meaning. He observed that those who survived unimaginable suffering were those who found purpose beyond mere survival. Frankl taught that without meaning, the mind becomes our greatest adversary, spiraling into hopelessness, despair, and self-destruction. But armed with purpose, the mind transforms from enemy to ally, even in the bleakest circumstances. These thinkers reveal a disturbing but essential truth. Your inner torment isn't a personal flaw. It's a universal struggle born from psychological repression, societal conditioning, existential anxiety, and the human hunger for meaning. Society never equipped us to manage the mind's immense power. Instead, it fed our shadow, nurtured our fears, and trapped us within invisible prisons of self-deception. But what are the consequences of ignoring this hidden war within? What happens when we continue to live blind to the forces shaping our identity and distorting our perception? The unseen consequences are deeper, darker, and far more dangerous than you imagine. This internal war, hidden beneath layers of conscious thought and societal conditioning, quietly shapes your every experience, guiding your actions without your awareness. The unseen consequences of a mind turned against itself ripple outward, affecting not only your inner world, but subtly influencing the world around you. Consider first the power of cognitive biases, the subtle distortions your mind employs to interpret reality. Confirmation bias leads you to unconsciously seek evidence that reinforces your darkest fears, your deepest insecurities. When your mind becomes your enemy, every failure, every rejection, every awkward conversation is magnified, confirming your belief that you are inadequate or unworthy. Conversely, every success is downplayed or attributed to luck, leaving you locked in a perpetual cycle of self-doubt. Then there's negativity bias, a deeply ingrained evolutionary trait designed to protect you by focusing your attention primarily on threat. Yet when your mind is hostile, this bias becomes destructive. You become hyper-aware of criticism while dismissing praise, remembering insults vividly, but forgetting compliment. Over time, this skewed perception erodes self-esteem, breeding a toxic internal narrative that you're fundamentally flawed. The mind thus quietly and relentlessly confirms your worst self-beliefs, keeping you trapped in perpetual anxiety and shame. On a neurological level, chronic self-critical thoughts reshape your brain. Neuroscientists have observed how repetitive negative thinking strengthens neural pathways associated with anxiety, depression, and pessimism. Your mind physically reprograms itself, carving deep, destructive grooves that make pessimism feel natural and hope seem foreign. Each thought that echoes doubt and fear reinforces these neural pathways, making it increasingly difficult to escape the internal prison you've built unknowingly. This psychological distortion doesn't just affect you, it silently infects society itself. When individual minds are at war with themselves, collective mental health suffers. Anxiety and depression rates surge, driven by the relentless pursuit of impossible standards perpetuated through social media, advertising, and cultural myth. Society increasingly values image over substance, status over authenticity, and conformity over true self-expression. The individual's internal battle is mirrored in societal structures, fueling an epidemic of loneliness, superficial relationships, and existential emptiness. The philosopher Aldous Huxley prophetically warned that humanity's greatest threat wouldn't be oppressive external regimes, but rather internal submission to comfort, distraction, and conformity. Today, we willingly imprison ourselves within endless distractions, scrolling mindlessly, consuming entertainment compulsively, numbing our existential anxiety with fleeting pleasures. These behaviors aren't merely harmless escapes, they are symptoms of a deeper internal conflict. They reflect our desperate attempts to flee from confronting our own hostile minds. This cycle is painfully ironic. To escape our inner turmoil, we indulge in distractions that only reinforce our inner turmoil. Every moment spent numbing ourselves with instant gratification strengthens the hidden power of our internal enemy. Society, unconsciously complicit, praises this escapism, labeling it productivity, progress, or success, while ignoring the rising rates of mental illness, addiction, and existential dread lurking beneath the surface. Moreover, when your mind is hostile, authentic relationships become nearly impossible. You project your internal conflicts onto others, interpreting neutral actions as threats or insults. Relationships built on trust deteriorate into suspicion and fear. Your mind, suspicious of its own worth, sabotages intimacy, convincing you that love is conditional, fleeting, or undeserved. Thus, loneliness deepens, isolation grows, and the inner enemy's power solidifies. Perhaps the most devastating consequence is the quiet erosion of your identity. Over time, your internal critic reshapes how you perceive yourself. You slowly forget who you were before the anxiety, before the doubt, before the internal warfare consumed your inner landscape. You adapt your identity to please this hostile force, becoming someone you no longer recognize, someone shaped entirely by fear and avoidance. Your authentic self fades away, replaced by a fragile mask carefully crafted to avoid judgment or rejection. Yet, there is hope within this darkness. Recognizing the unseen consequences marks a turning point, a moment when you finally glimpse the chains binding you from within. This recognition can become a powerful catalyst for rebellion, for reclaiming the mind that was always meant to serve, not oppress. But how exactly do we break free? Is liberation from our internal enemy truly possible? To reclaim control, we must rebel, not merely against external forces, but against the very framework of thinking we've unknowingly accepted. This rebellion demands a radical shift in perspective, one so counterintuitive and powerful that it can shatter the illusions imprisoning our mind. The time has come to overthrow your internal tyrant. Freedom begins when you realize you have been complicit in your own captivity. To overthrow the internal tyrant, the mind itself, you must first recognize that the chains binding you are illusions of your own creation, strengthened by years of unconscious reinforcement. This rebellion is not merely psychological, it is existential, philosophical, even spiritual. It demands confronting your deepest fears and rewriting the narrative that your mind has imposed upon you. The rebellion starts by challenging one fundamental belief: that your thoughts define who you truly are. Your mind, once an ally now turned enemy, feeds you an endless stream of judgments, fears, regrets, and insecurities. Yet these thoughts are not objective truth. They are stories, interpretations your mind has constructed based on past experiences, cultural conditioning, and subconscious anxiety. To rebel is to see thoughts for what they truly are, passing clouds rather than permanent truths. Philosopher Eckhart Tolle described this as observing the thinking mind from a place of detached awareness. When you become the observer rather than the victim of your thoughts, their power dramatically weakens. Each anxious thought, each self-critical judgment loses its grip when you refuse to automatically accept it as truth. This shift, subtle yet revolutionary, is the first step toward reclaiming your mind. Carl Jung's concept of shadow integration provides a powerful blueprint for liberation. Instead of denying or suppressing negative emotions, Jung taught that true freedom comes from confronting and embracing them. Shadow work involves courageously acknowledging your darker impulses, fears, and suppressed pain, allowing them into conscious awareness without judgment or resistance. By illuminating your inner darkness, you neutralize its hidden power. The shadow loses its ability to manipulate you when fully brought into the light of conscious awareness. Nietzsche called this radical honesty amor fati, the love of one's fate. Rather than passively enduring life's hardships or internal conflicts, amor fati encourages active acceptance, even embracing of one's struggles. By willingly engaging with difficulty rather than running from it, you regain power over your internal narrative. Your mind shifts from tormentor to ally, transforming challenges into opportunities for profound growth and self-realization. Viktor Frankl revealed perhaps the most powerful weapon against internal oppression, meaning. In the depths of unimaginable suffering, Frankl discovered that those who maintained a sense of purpose endured even the darkest moment. To defeat your inner enemy, you must consciously cultivate purpose beyond mere comfort, status, or superficial happiness. Purpose provides a higher context for suffering, transforming internal struggles into stepping stones toward greater wisdom, resilience, and compassion. Historical examples abound. Nelson Mandela endured decades of imprisonment, yet emerged stronger precisely because he used isolation to strengthen his mind rather than allow it to break him. Vincent van Gogh channeled internal anguish into art, transforming emotional torment into timeless masterpieces. These individuals and countless others throughout history understood a powerful truth. Adversity, when confronted courageously, is a doorway rather than a dead end. Yet this rebellion demands more than intellectual insight. It requires practical shifts in daily life. Mindfulness practices, meditation, and journaling can systematically dismantle habitual thought patterns. By regularly observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment, you create distance between yourself and your mental narrative, reclaiming autonomy over your emotional landscape. Equally vital is community. Isolation strengthens the mind's destructive narrative. Genuine connection breaks them down. Surround yourself with individuals who see beyond your mask, who remind you of your inherent worth even when your internal critic screams otherwise. True relationships become mirrors reflecting your authentic self, challenging the distortions imposed by your internal tyrant. This rebellion culminates in perhaps its most counterintuitive realization. True freedom doesn't come from defeating or silencing your mind, but from radically altering your relationship with it. Instead of enemy, your mind becomes a teacher, albeit a harsh one, guiding you toward deeper self-awareness and growth. Every anxious thought, every wave of self-doubt can become an invitation to explore hidden truths, to confront fears courageously, and to choose conscious action rather than unconscious reaction. But what lies beyond this rebellion? What ultimate truth awaits when you finally reclaim your mind, transforming your greatest adversary into your most profound ally? The final revelation, the deepest insight awaits, ready to redefine everything you thought you knew about yourself, your reality, and your place within it. Prepare yourself, for the ultimate truth will change you forever. You stand now on the precipice of the most profound revelation of all, an insight so powerful, so transformative, that it reshapes reality itself. Every struggle, every sleepless night, every quiet despair has led you precisely here, to this moment of clarity where illusions dissolve and the deepest truth emerges starkly before you. And here's that truth: you are not your mind. At first glance, this realization may seem simple, perhaps too simple, but within these 5 words lies a universe of profound liberation. You have always identified yourself completely with the ceaseless stream of thoughts, emotions, fears, and desires that swirl endlessly inside your mind. Yet these are merely events within your consciousness. They are not the consciousness itself. You are something infinitely deeper, infinitely more expansive than your transient thoughts or emotion. Your mind, as powerful and complex as it is, remains a limited interpreter of reality. It filters your experiences through conditioned beliefs, past traumas, cultural expectations, and deep-seated fears. But beneath this turbulent surface exists a calm, ever-present awareness, a silent observer untouched by anxiety, unaffected by failure, impervious to fear. This pure, witnessing consciousness is your true self, the timeless essence that observes your thoughts but never becomes them. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously asserted, "Existence precedes essence." By this, he meant that we create ourselves through our choices and action, not through our predetermined roles, thoughts, or social conditioning. Your true identity, therefore, emerges not from what your mind says you are, but from how you consciously choose to engage with reality. The mind might tell you a story of inadequacy, of anxiety, of fear, but your conscious awareness always holds the power to choose differently. Your identity is never fixed, it is forever fluid, shaped moment by moment through the choices you make. This revelation holds immense power. By recognizing yourself as the observer rather than the victim of your mind, you break the chains of habitual patterns, freeing yourself from the tyranny of automatic reaction. You realize that the mind, despite its relentless chatter, is merely a tool, a powerful servant, but never your master. This newfound freedom allows you to consciously direct your attention, transforming anxiety into curiosity, fear into courage, doubt into purpose. Carl Jung called this ultimate realization individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of your psyche into conscious wholeness. To individuate is to reclaim the fragmented parts of yourself, to unify the shadow and the light, the pain and the joy into one cohesive, self-aware identity. In doing so, your internal war ends not through victory but through profound acceptance, transforming your mind from a battlefield into fertile ground for growth and wisdom. Nietzsche, too, understood this truth. He spoke passionately about self-overcoming, not as conquest, but as constant renewal. Each internal struggle is an opportunity for rebirth, each challenge a catalyst for deeper authenticity. Nietzsche taught that the mind becomes your enemy only when you cling rigidly to static identities or outdated narratives. Liberation arrives when you embrace uncertainty, when you willingly confront the abyss and realize you have always possessed the courage to create meaning from chaos. But perhaps Viktor Frankl illuminated this truth most powerfully of all. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Your ultimate freedom comes not from silencing your mind, but from expanding that sacred space, the gap between thought and reaction, until you clearly see that your true self always has the power to choose. Your mind is merely a part of you, not your entirety, and you alone hold the power to decide your destiny. This final truth is neither abstract nor theoretical. It is experiential, a lived revelation accessible at every moment. From this awareness, life becomes a continuous act of creation rather than a relentless struggle for survival. Joy returns, resilience strengthens, and suffering transforms into profound wisdom. Your relationships deepen, your actions gain meaning, and your inner landscape, once hostile and fearful, becomes your greatest ally. Picture this vividly. You awaken tomorrow not with dread, but with curiosity. You face uncertainty not with fear, but with excitement. You encounter failure not as proof of inadequacy, but as a stepping stone toward profound insight. Your internal narrative shifts from victimhood to empowerment, from anxiety to courage, from enemy to friend. This is your ultimate truth. This is your liberation. The war within ends not through suppression, not through distraction, but through radical acceptance of this powerful, transformative realization. You are not your mind. You are infinitely more. Now the choice is yours. Remain trapped in familiar suffering or step boldly into the boundless freedom of conscious awareness. The battlefield quiets, the turmoil subsides, and finally, at long last, you come home to yourself. As you step forward into this newfound clarity, remember, you don't have to navigate this journey alone. If you'd like to delve deeper into the philosophies and powerful insights discussed here, I've curated a carefully chosen book list for you in the description below. These texts can serve as guides, companions, or even gentle provocations to continue your exploration. And remember, your voice matters deeply. I'd love to hear your thoughts, reflections, or experiences in the comments below. Your journey may inspire someone else's path toward liberation. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and may your mind become your greatest ally.